In a world of people innately connected to the elements and their surroundings, chaos and what ensues when the Firebloods esteem themselves higher than they should. And now communion with El is lost, and their world seems to be unraveling. Or is it? And with that, I'm going to say, welcome to Based on Faith, where I talk about books based on my faith in Christ. Today I'm going to be reviewing To Bind Fire. To Bind Fire is book 1 in Empire of Ash and Song, and I'm not sure if this series is a duology, trilogy, or there will be more books in it, because on Kindle it just says book 1 of 1, but it's clearly not a one book series. I'm not sure I've ever heard of a one book series, but the place the story ends at is not, and the author teases a second book, so I'm just not sure how many books there will be in it yet. And I'm kind of not elated about the fact that she doesn't let us know how many books there will be in the series, or maybe she lets us know somewhere else. But on Kindle and on our website, I didn't see much on that. But moving on, To Bind Fire was published September 2023, so it's a pretty recent book, and it's a Christian fantasy authored by Carlson, and this is going to be a spoiler-free review. Okay, so what's this book about? Iris is our main protagonist, and she's a girl who knows fire. Iris has always been friends with fire, that's what the book says, and she's 15 to 16 years old. Book 1 opens with her being devastated by the death of her family and the destruction of her home by fire. And in leaving her home, the traders, who are nomadic people, exceptionally skilled at weaving, find her, and Tabin, the leader's son, becomes quite fond of her. And through this book, we follow them as they journey through different towns and different places, and we, through this journey, uncover more of Iris's identity and her past. In this book, we also follow Besound. Besound is the crown prince of the Fire Empire, and this book is a dual POV book. That is, we follow Iris and we follow Besound, but we follow Iris more closely in this book. And I'm just going to say what exactly we followed Besound through is not something I can quite put in words, because I honestly did not see the point of it. Through the book, I was like, why are we following this guy? Like, yeah, we are discovering his character, we are discovering more about him, more of his backstory, and we get to meet him as a person, but I just don't see his place in the story yet. But I think that's something that we will see more of in book 2, as opposed to book 1. So I think book 1 was like setting up for stuff type of book, which makes me feel like this book is probably not going to be a duology. It's looking like one of those books that would be like a trilogy or a lot more books. But let me just continue. Besound's mom wants him engaged to someone for more power, but he has very little interest in politics, even as the crown prince. Yes. The fact that I'm not quite sure what the point of his story is in these books and how he's tied. Like, we see a loose tie between Iris and Besound, but the actual tie between Besound and Iris in this book is something that I'm still unclear of, and that's perhaps one of my qualms with this book. But I'm going to go more into this later. You're like, go more into it. You just went a lot into it. I'm going to go more into it later. Alright, so what did I particularly like about this book? Let's talk about the world building, because it's a fantasy book. The world building is interesting. So in this book, we get to learn more about the world as Iris learns more about the world she's in, because growing up before the destruction of her home by fire, she grew up secluded at the top of a mountain with her mom and her brother. So those are the only two people she knew, and perhaps one guy who occasionally came and left. I think this book is reminiscent of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because the whole fire bringing chaos and disturbing the balance of the world. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening, but it seems like my neighbor is doing something again. But the book seems reminiscent of Avatar: The Last Airbender because of that whole disturbing the balance of the world by fire thing. And I think that's where the similarities end for me. I'm not sure if other readers found more similarities. Continuing with the world building of this book, the Firebloods and everyone else previously communed with El, ensuring harmony, but the evil one, Al, possessed and corrupted fire, allowing a Fireblood to wield fire in a manner that they were never meant to wield it. So El, who is El in this book? I think El is the creator of this world, but the author said something that is very confusing and sounds theologically inaccurate to me, because ultimately this is a Christian book. She said, in the beginning, man was but a thought, formless, meaningless. The thought of man took shape in El's mind, but he had seen other star princes make other worlds. He had seen brokenness, destruction, and the spirits of created beings drifting in the void without home or hope. I'm like, other star princes? What do you mean? And then she presses on with this other star princess thing. A paragraph later saying, Iris lowered the book. The words bounced hollow off her mind. So Elle was a star and all the other stars were princes? That didn't make any sense. This sounded like a tall tale, like stories told to children. So I'm just going to say that's the only place she mentions star princess in this book. And I know because I did a search in the book for the phrase star and for the phrase princess. And talking about star, there is a lot of star connotations in this book. It talks about the stars a lot. So moving on, who is Owl? Quoting from the book, Owl is a being, not man, not animal, something else, something that did not belong. He brought evil, he corrupted the hearts of man and turned them away from harmony with hell. He seduced man with visions of power. So we definitely see the Christian themes in this book. We, there being a creator and there being an evil one who, corrupts the minds of men. And when it comes to like the Christian themes, let's talk about this because this is Christian fantasy and the author mentioned the need for more Christian fantasy with latent Christianity. She mentioned this on our website. She didn't mention this on the book because I went to our website to like look up other works. And I have to say, when it comes to latent Christian themes, you're like, some of you might not even know what that means because I myself did not understand when she said latent Christian themes. I'm like, what does that mean? Latent means something that is there, but that is like, I'm just going to look for the actual dictionary definition because I'm not doing this. Okay, so latent means something that exists but not quite yet developed or manifested or hidden or concealed. I think this is the definition she was going with in this book. So basically, hidden Christian themes that are not quite out there but that, are just like right beneath the surface and sort of underdeveloped. And I'm like, why do we need more books like that? And some people go, it's so that people who are not believers can read the book and can be influenced by the theme without it actually being shoved in their face that they're reading a Christian book. And I'm not sure if the themes were as latent as she wanted them to be because some themes like there being owl, there being Elle, and baptism have very obvious Christian ties. And the thing is, ultimately, I think with Christian fantasy, also with every Christian fiction, and I mentioned this in my last video, The Slumber of Christianity, I mentioned how every Christian fiction, ultimately, the goal is for it to expand my mind. Okay, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I'm going to be mentioning it now. But the goal is ultimately for me to expand my mind and my imagination, for me to see Christ and my walk with him in a way that I have not seen it before. That is, influence my walk with Christ in one way or another. And I think the problem with latent Christian themes is sometimes I read the book and I'm like, I see some Christian ties, but I don't see how this influenced my walk with Christ and made me a better Christian or made me see Christ or the world in a different way. And I'm going to be honest and say this is maybe one of my problems with Chronicles of Narnia. I don't think I've read through the entire series yet, but some of the books, like the book is clearly called Christian fantasy, but some of the books I read them and I'm like, that's a great story, but what were the Christian themes? Like, how is that supposed to help me in my walk with Christ more? Was it just fantasy that's influenced by Christianity, or is it really Christian fantasy? So this book is part of a series called Empire of Ash and Song. So where does the song come in? The song is a prominent element in this book, but I'm going to say it is a quite confusing fantastical element that was added to this book. And why do I say it's confusing? Because following the book, the song is introduced to us as the song is inside you, placed there before you were even born by El himself. Find it and you'll find harmony. And we see themes in this book like giving songs and hearing the song inside you. You don't just even hear your song, you can hear other people's songs. And I'm just like very confused, like, does the other person know when you're hearing their songs? And is the song its own thing? Is it its own person? Because we say that sometimes, like when Iris is confused, like the song in her reacts to a confusion and another person's song can quiet the song in her. Maybe not quiet, but can calm the song in her. I don't even know. I'm just very confused about, this song element. And I think this is something I really hope she expands more on in book 2. And, I can't really judge if she's done a good job or not because this is not the end of the series. The series has more books coming, and when it comes to fantasy, just know you probably won't understand everything until the final book in the series, so I guess so. And the water scene in this book also seems reminiscent of Tedeka's Circle series to me, and Baptism as well. I've not read Tedeka's Circle series yet, but he has an excerpt of it in the Slumber of Christianity that I have reviewed, and in that excerpt it has a scene that seems very similar to the water scene in this book, and you know what water scene I'm talking about when you read the book. It's very hard to miss. So what problems did the main character encounter? So I'm going to say at this point that there is a minor spoiler. It's not a big spoiler or anything, it's minor, so you might want to skip ahead to the next section. Getting into it, the romance between Iris and a love interest in this book just was something I was not a big fan of, because it did not understand how to take no as an answer, and everything just happened so fast as well, because this girl, a family just died, and she just had a whole lot of information dumped on her, and you are requiring romantic interest from her, and I'm just like, bro, she's very confused. Her family just died. She just met a bunch of new strangers. She just learned about a whole new world and discovered very new things about herself. And what she needs right now is space to process everything, not... But the thing is, it didn't feel quite as toxic at first. And I'm still struggling to see where the switch came from, because it felt like one character. And then it felt like, those little character traits in him that was like, that's given yellow flag. It's not particularly a green flag, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a red flag. It's just a character trait I'm not perhaps a big fan of, but it's like peculiar to you, like it's your character traits. Those character traits were so amplified. They became so amplified that they turned into like glaring red flags, and I'm just like, where did that come from? And one of my biggest pet peeves, not with this book in particular, but just with books generally, is having characters profess love to one another in a very short period of time. To me, it feels like love bombing, because I'm like, do you love the person or do you have a crush on the person? Do you love the person or do you like the person? Because I don't know, I feel like if you've known each other for less than a month, the whole I love you is like, are you sure? Because that's a very short period of time to get to know someone. But what do I know? Anywho, I cared about the development of this romantic relationship, and so I definitely felt blindsided when the toxicity came up, because it was something I was interested in. And someone else in this book said that a love interest was only interested in her because she was shiny and new, and I wonder if there's some truth to that, because she said it quite so many times, and I wonder if the author was trying to pass that message across to us, because sometimes the author has somebody else say something they want to say. All in all, did this book make me laugh or cry? I'm going to say that there were scenes where two characters were embracing and a spectator was like, enough of this disgusting display. And I cackled when that happened. I found it quite funny, because I think there's something about authors where they tend to pretend like characters are in their own bubble. And we can see that before the whole romantic exchange happens between these characters and I'm not talking about this, but I'm talking generally. We can see before the whole romantic exchange starts happening that there were other people there, and all of a sudden they are PDAing, and I'm just like, you remember that there are other people around you, right? And you're not all of a sudden wrapped in this bubble of invisibility. You know that, right? But again, what do I know? So I'm just going to say the first half of this book was definitely well paced. I enjoyed the first half of this book, but the second half of the book, the pacing felt a bit off. Sometimes it felt like things were going on too fast, but then too slow at the same time. The pacing of the second half of the book just felt weird to me. It just felt like too much was happening too quickly, and also very little was happening at the same time. So one thing I did not particularly like about this book, I know I've mentioned quite a few things I did not like about the book, but one of the other things I did not like about this book was how one of the characters had a change of heart. Because we see that he has a change of heart, but the reason for his change of heart, the reason that was given was just like, that's it. Like, you tried to kill this person. What do you mean? That was your reason. Anywho, rounding up my review, the copy of this book that I read was on Kindle Unlimited. It's a Christian fantasy, and I've mentioned earlier about how the author talked about the need for fantasy with more latent Christian elements, and ultimately I have to say I don't know about that. I'll recommend this book for readers 16 and up, because there were some sexual connotations in the book. There was nothing like sexually on page in the book, but there were just like some romantic exchanges that you might think is a bit too much for people 12 to 15 ish, but would probably not be too much for people 16 and up. There are also like references to being drunk, but ultimately it's a Christian romance, so it's a clean romance. And I'm going to say this book was not quite a 4-star read for me. Maybe when the rest of the series comes out, I'm going to see the place of this book in the rest of the series and maybe give it a better review. But I think for now, it's a 3-star read, maybe 3.5 star, because I wouldn't call it, for me, a 3-star book is a mid book. And a 4-star read is a very good book. It's somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle. It wasn't a great read because I struggled with the second half of the book, like I mentioned. And as a Christian fantasy, I don't see the Christian part of it very well. Like, I saw those Christian themes and all that, but it feels like a book I read for entertainment. So I think I'll give it like maybe a 3.5 stars, 3.25 stars, maybe. I don't know. My actual final review will be on Goodreads, and I'm going to post my Goodreads link in the description section. But with that, I've come to the end of my review. If you enjoy reading other Christian fiction, I have a review of Blessed Child by Ted Dekker. I'm going to post it somewhere up here. And it's a wonderful book that I really enjoyed reading. It's the first book in a duology. The second part of the book is called A Man Called Blessed. I would recommend you check that out. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed watching it, and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can get notified when I post new videos. And with that, I'm going to say have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.